Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Healing Daily to Live. My name is Carisha and I'm back with another video. So today I want to talk about 5 reasons why to travel with the real South Africa. So reason number 1, their communication was great. The way that they communicated was through email and WhatsApp. Very seamless, very straightforward. When I initially booked my itinerary for my trip, it was all email. I was able to be in contact with the Blantons within a 24-hour period. There was nothing longer than that. Pretty straightforward. When I got to South Africa, everything was through WhatsApp. I wasn't really used to WhatsApp, but it was really nothing hard to figure out. It's just an app that you download onto your phone, and it works very well on Wi-Fi. So honestly, it helped me a lot with not having to use extra and data on my phone plan. I was able to rely mainly on the Wi-Fi. Number 2. So the second reason of why you should book with the real South Africa is accommodations. The accommodations were amazing. So I was there for a while in South Africa, and I feel like in a way they kept me in the same chain to keep it familiar. That's just my take, and I appreciate that so much. All in Johannesburg, Cape Town, and Durban, I got to stay at the same chain, and it felt so familiar. It made it very easy when I had to come into a new hotel because it just made it feel more like home. I knew already how it was. All of the hotels had washer and dryers. Plus, I loved it. I love their scent of fabric softener and detergent too. It's just so potent and it smells so good. But it was such a plus to have that. You have a whole kitchen, so if you want to cook something, you definitely can. There is room service. A couple of my hotels had balconies. You were able to see the water, see the scenery, the mountains. It was just amazing. So the accommodations, definitely. The only thing that I can't really change, but the only thing that I would add on to bring for staying at the hotels outside of the States, and I think this is something that hotels do outside the States that's kind of similar across the board, but at the same time, I'm not sure. I just saw with this chain, they didn't have a deadbolt. And so I travel often, and when I go and travel, I always have this on my door. And so I would just want to share it with you guys. So this is what it looks like. You can get it off of Amazon, and I'll put the name of it. And it's like this goes inside the door, like, it's hard to say, like the door opens and this side goes in that side, and then this just like clicks down, and it prevents anybody from being able to come in. But it's a really good thing to use when you're traveling, and it makes you feel just extra safe. And leading into my next reason to book with the real South Africa. Number 3, safety. They made me feel so safe. Through communication, they're always checking on me, always making sure I'm good, always knowing where I'm at. I felt safe. I felt safe when I landed in Johannesburg. I felt safe when I landed in Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe was a different type of feel. Like, you really feel like you're just out in the bush, you're not close to a city. You're out in no man's land, I feel like. But it was still amazing. I felt safe the whole time. There was no time I didn't. I walked outside by myself in Johannesburg. I went into the main city part, actually the richest square mile. I walked in that area before I realized what that was, and it was busy. There were a lot of people walking around, a lot of businessmen and women walking around. It seemed like college kids too. Like it just seemed like it was everybody walking around out there. I walked around in Cape Town as well. I went to Pick and Play, one of their grocery stores. I felt safe. I felt normal. I felt like a local. I went to go get groceries. I went to go get detergent because I wanted to wash my clothes again and dry them. And so I went and got that, and I got some snacks too. They had peanut butter brittle. Oh my gosh, I had to stay away because I know that would hurt my teeth so much. But I had started to get addicted to peanut butter brittle. It was so good. So yeah, I felt safe. I felt safe in Cape Town. I felt safe in Johannesburg. I felt safe in Durban to walk out and just do my thing. And I felt like a local. Number 4. So the 4th reason to book with the Real South Africa is the transportation. Transportation was top notch. Every time I was at the airport, my drivers were there. Granted, I was not looking very well. I started to see that I was rushing a lot when I was getting off the aircraft. I was just excited. I was ready to be there. And I just thought, my eyes were sharp enough when I was coming out of baggage claim. But I really was going too fast. I was seeing other drivers, but I wasn't seeing mine. And maybe I should have communicated better of like, maybe what are they wearing or how does the sign look? But I just needed to slow down because the drivers were there every single time I landed. The drivers were there every single time there was an excursion. A good way to make yourself known is that when it's time for an excursion, like if you were to go to the Apartheid Museum in Johannesburg, just like let yourself be known at your hotel. Like let them know that you're waiting. So there's like no miscommunication. I feel like I could have did it a little bit better on my part of just letting them know that I was there, because I just felt like every time they weren't there and every time they were there, I just really wasn't speaking up for myself and making myself known. So make yourself known and slow down at the same time. Know that the driver is going to be there because they were there every time. Everywhere that I need to go, they were always there earlier than me. Also, when I traveled from Johannesburg to Cape Town to Durban, every time I was on those flights, they blocked the middle seat. That was such a plus because it just gave me room, it gave me my privacy, it gave me my space, and it really felt like I was just in first class. They just made that experience so well. And number 5. So the 5th reason would be leisure. The Real South Africa had plenty of activities and excursions to partake in. Granted, they have your itinerary laid out, but at the same time, you have an opportunity to pick and choose what you want to do. I believe it was endless on the things that they had. They had history, they had culture. Zimbabwe was so many fun activities and excursions, like just endless. And then being in South Africa, Johannesburg, Cape Town, and Durban, there was a lot of history, a lot of culture. That wraps up my video. I am going to turn it over to my interviews. This is my first interview. Just want to let you know. I wish I could have asked them some questions that maybe nobody has ever asked them before, but I was so excited to meet them in person. I've been watching their videos basically all year long. I had gotten their videos from going to a virtual summit with Ashley in Africa. I've just been watching like her videos all year long, their videos all year long, so it was so surreal to see them in person, and it was such an honor. They're beautiful, and it was just amazing to meet them. So I hope you enjoy some of the interview, and hopefully there's new insight or maybe just a recap of what you already know about them. But if you don't know about the Real South Africa, I ask that you go ahead and type in therealsouthafrica.com and look at their packages, look at what they have to offer, take a look at it and see if it's something that fits you. I believe they're a great tourism, great bridge for us to visit South Africa and explore and get to learn the culture and learn the everyday life and do it with class, because they do it with class. My whole time down in South Africa and Zimbabwe was seamless. Really, nothing went wrong. I can't really say anything went wrong. Everything was just right on point. The only thing I would change is the weather, but can't change the weather. The weather is going to do what the weather does. And this is the real South Africa.
Yeah, we're the real South Africa travel and tourism based in Johannesburg. And we've been doing tourism for a little while over here, properly, here in South Africa. And so I think that you might have a few questions about what we do or how we do it,
or how we got here, or
yeah, the whole
excuse
story.
my voice, this is the sexiest I can be right now.
Oh Lord.
So what made you start?
We happened to see Blacks Without Borders on the TV downstairs. The following year, 2010, was when he was still working for the Secret Service, and then they came here for World Cup, and then he had such a good time. He was all excited. I was like, why is he so excited? He doesn't get excited about anything. And then he met friends. This is the short version. He'll tell the long version. And then he met friends. The friends invited us back. I came over for the first time in 2011. It wasn't that I was hesitant. I just wanted to see like why he was so excited, because like I say, for him to be like, yo, like this is the lick. I'm like, oh, let me see what he's talking about. Then I got here. It was like nothing that in my mind that I expected.
Yeah.
Because they tell us what to expect.
Yeah.
And they drill it into you very, very hard what to expect. So I get here, and even just on the drive from the airport, I'm like, lies. And I'm sitting in the back, and I'm like, what is happening? And then from there, like, they took the lid off, and my mind was wide open. And at that point, I was just like, what are we doing?
And that was like 10 years ago. So that's crazy that you guys like felt that way 10 years ago.
That was
about 13, 14 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. Because at that time, there was no real movement back to Africa. People wasn't talking about Africa really at all, at least in our circles. And we was in a pretty good circle. But at the same time, you know, when I was U.S. Secret Service, I traveled the world. I was always on a plane somewhere. So everywhere was kind of like blended in. It was all the same.
Yeah.
And I came here, and I was like, this is different. This is, this is the first African country that I've been to, but I've been to many European countries, South American countries, everywhere. Russia, you name it, I was there. But when I came here, it was a whole different thing. They was welcoming, like you said.
Yeah.
And here I am.
Wow. So has Johannesburg been the same?
I know, I stopped your question because I'm like, it's even funny that you asked that question, because we just had this conversation with our family members earlier this week about how much we've watched Johannesburg grow. Like when we first started coming, the Mall of Africa wasn't there.
Wow.
Yeah. So we watched that being built. When we first started coming, Midland Mall wasn't as big as it was.
Yeah.
Midland, Maine wasn't there.
Yeah, actually the largest building in South Africa wasn't here.
Wasn't there. That wasn't there. What else wasn't here? Rosebank wasn't here. Well, Rosebank was there, but
it was smaller.
The Zone wasn't there. The Rosebank Mall wasn't there. So we watched all these things happen. In our time of coming back and forth. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's changed a lot, yes.
How did you guys pick Johannesburg then? What?
You can tell that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty easy. I got here for the World Cup. The whole world was here. It's different than Super Bowl. I mean, the World Cup is in my mind, is bigger than the Super Bowl, because it was so many people in here from around the world, celebrating their team, going to games. And they put on a really good show. And everything went well. Everybody was praising Johannesburg for putting it together. They're the only African nation who's actually done this. And so coming here, meeting the people, and the biggest part was that that was the only thing we knew at one point was Johannesburg. And so just meeting the people and just the stuff we were doing and how they were very open to us made it easy to say, you know what, we live in the DC metro area, ain't nobody just nice to us, and we were decent people, and here everybody was nice, and it was perfect. So I was like, okay, let's take a look at this thing, and we did.
And then, so after we were kind of looking at South Africa, our next thought was, is this a place that we could retire? Is this a place that we could live? So then in 2013, we're like, okay, let's take a couple months and let's just go to South Africa and just go to Cape Town.
Yeah.
Because that's where everyone, when you say South Africa, you think Cape Town.
Yeah.
So at that point, we'd only spent about 10 days in Johannesburg. We spent 2 months in Cape Town, and in those 2 months, we spent about a week up here in Johannesburg. And because we were a little bit younger, we were a little bit younger.
I still look young.
Yeah,
40-something.
Yeah, 30-something.
Yeah.
Because we were younger, Johannesburg made more sense.
Okay.
So it was like, we can always hop a 2-hour flight to get to Cape Town. So let's just make Joburg the hub, and then we can jump off to any other province. And that's ultimately why we chose Johannesburg.
I see. Okay. Have you guys tried to do like your DNA to figure out where you come from in Africa, or does that interest you at all?
It doesn't interest me at all. I think where you feel comfortable at. For example, you can say, okay, I do my DNA, and you're from this location in the whatever part of South Africa or in Africa, but you go there, you might not vibe with the people. It might not be what you're used to, it might not be what you want. But we knew when we came here, as you were probably saying, it's very built up here. All the amenities here, everything you need. So. And then plus the people wanted us here. I mean, it was just like it was like ticking all the boxes. So as far as the DNA test, it wasn't a big thing to me, and I just don't want to be confused.
Yeah.
I know where I want to be, and most of the time we don't get a chance to pick where we end up. You know, normally it was like wherever your parents were, then you end up being born, and then you incorporate that. But this is a fresh start. We got to pick where we wanted to go, and we both decided that Johannesburg was the place to be.
And I think my take on that is, and this is just my little conspiracy theory, I think that when we do things like DNA tests, they ultimately tell Black people, because they know that we really want to know where we come from, and they really can't tell us as much as we would like to know, so they will pick some of the poorest countries on the continent to tell you that you're from there, hoping that all these Black people will romanticize these small areas and come and bring money. Like that's just me.
Yeah, that's her.
Yeah,
that's just me.
No,
but I think it makes sense, because it's like they tell you that you're from places that you know have very little infrastructure. But if they can tell enough people that they're from there, can they convince them to do the work that they're not willing to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's just me.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's just me. That's just me.
So where do you guys see the real South Africa in 10 years?
Still here.
Yeah, I can, I think the way things are going, the way how we're, grassrooting this whole thing, bringing people over, letting them see it for themselves, big groups, little groups, 2s, 4, 8, 12, all depends on who wants to come. I think from what we've been told over the last 5 years, that people know who we are. Yeah. People are talking about us. Keep in mind, we're here in South Africa, and all we know is that when we walk around the city or walk around the country, people are like, hey, they go to real South Africa. Hey, they go Mark and Tasha. Hey, and these are South Africans, and sometimes every once in a while it's an American, like very few. And hopefully we'll change that to where we are walking down the street in Johannesburg, or we're in some small city in South Africa, and somebody's like, hey, they go to real South Africa, and then they say, I came because I saw you guys, or they say, I came because another friend of mine moved here who came through you, and now I'm here. So we have generations of people, and I hope that we're kind of like in the mix when it comes to, what's happening next here in South Africa, as far as, because they really want Americans, African Americans in particular, to come to South Africa and make a way.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can spearhead a lot of that stuff.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
I
because
agree.
we do have a lot of matter of fact, before
Have a
we
lot
came
of
here,
conversations.
we had a conversation today with some prominent South Africans talking about the exact same thing.
Wow.
Like, what can we do
Yeah,
as a
Wow.
collective? Because there's things that we can do, but like you said, we need someone to bridge that gap.
Yes.
And we're kind of in the sweet spot, so we want to take advantage of that. And if it allows us to, continue to grow as we have been the last 5.5 years, almost 6, going on 7 years now, then that's what I wanted to do. So I think we'll still be around doing bigger and better things, maybe expanding, maybe not to other African countries, but definitely expanding in the tourism space to where we can actually bring in more investors, bring in more money, have people looking at different types of opportunities. Like, those are things that we're poised to be able to do, and we just gotta find the right people to come in and make it happen.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.